to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company WindowWorks from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. Today's show is sponsored by Duque Renders. For those of you who aren't familiar with Duque Renders, they are a 3D render studio based in beautiful Tulum, Mexico. Duque Renders specializes in interior design and architectural photorealistic imaging. I interviewed Fernando Duque, the CEO of Duque Renders, back in episodes 722 and 823. I highly encourage you to listen to these episodes if you haven't already. It'll help you get to know Duque Renders as well as Fernando. Today is a little different. In those previous episodes, we heard the benefits of using Duque Renders for rendering. We heard how Fernando has built his company on terrific business principles, and we heard how Duque Renders has grown so quickly and successfully in a few short years. But today, we're going to learn firsthand from two interior designers, Elle Odori, founder of Decorelle, and Nicole Salceda, founder of Eye for Pretty, who consider Duque Renders as part of their Swiss Army knife in creating, proposing, and closing their interior design projects. Now, just as an aside, you are going to love these two ladies. I promise it. And I know once you hear from them today, you're going to want to know more about them and hear more from them. So good news is that Nicole has been on the show already, episode 852, and we will link that in the show notes. So make sure you listen to it. And Elle, after meeting her, I immediately invited her to come back onto the show to talk more about her business. So keep an eye out for that in the coming months. Now, let's learn the actual concrete ways that these two successful interior designers are using Duque Renders to up-level their design projects and to close more design projects. Hey, Fernando, Nicole, and Elle. Thanks so much for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Hi, Luann. Hi, ladies. So nice to be here with you.
Thank you for having us, Luann. This is Nicole Salceda.
Thank you guys for having me on. This is Elle.
So I'm looking forward to this conversation, as I am all the others, but this is going to be fun because I'm really interested to pull apart the way you two ladies are utilizing Duque Renders in your projects, because of course Duque Renders has been a sponsor of the show for a few years now, and it's going to be fun learning and understanding how you utilize Duque Renders in order to up-level your projects and to deliver a good service to your clients. But before we pick that apart, although Fernando has been on the show 2 times and we have talked about Duque Renders often on the show, we may have people who are new to us. So Fernando, would you start us off by telling us a little bit about Duque Renders, the products and service you offer, and why you think that your products and services are valuable for interior designers?
Absolutely. So everybody, hello, who's listening. My name is Fernando Duque. I'm the co-founder of Duque Renders. We're a 3D rendering studio in beautiful Tulum, Mexico. And the best way to describe what we do is like, well, you know how usually interior designer clients struggle a little bit on how the design is presented to them because probably you've heard it, I just can't visualize it. Well, what we do is to create all the images prior execution, meaning renderings, video animations, and everything related to visualizing the project before it's done. This is crucial because then you will avoid costly returns, problems with your client, endless back and forth, and makes the entire presentation of the project much easier and smoother, saving clients time, saving designers, of course, like I mentioned, a lot of headaches, and having everyone on the same page. So that's what we do.
Okay. So let's put this little testimonial of yours to a challenge. so, Nicole and Elle, each of you take a turn and support or disclaim what he's saying. Fernando's saying it's making it easier. He's saying it's making the project smoother. He's saying that it is limiting returns. So how is that actually showing up in your business? Do you want to start, Nicole?
Sure. As Fernando said, it's clients hire us because they don't have the vision. They cannot see what the end and the final result will be. So how do we make it crystal clear to them? By using renderings. And that's where Duke Renders comes in. And I could talk about it a little bit more later, but for us, we are getting into the spec home market, and to be able to have this beautiful finished rendering of what the home is going to look like before it even hits the market has been instrumental in selling the homes for us before they're even built even. So I really have Duke Renders to thank for that.
That's interesting. Okay, and we will pick that apart a little bit. So, Elle, how about you? What are you? He has stated some of the value that his company provides, and what are you noticing? Those are you noticing a different lane that the value shows up?
Yeah, I think because Nicole touched on how it's beneficial to clientele, I'm going to touch on how it's beneficial to us designers because, we have so much on our plates. There's so many things we have to tick off when it comes to projects, especially full renovations. If you know, this is one less thing you have to worry about. It shortens the amount of time it takes a client to approve. It just makes life easier on you, right? It is very, very beneficial for the client. Obviously, we have to bring it to life for them to see. They can't necessarily visualize the space like we can. It's all in our head. And I think Nicole will understand. For me, per se, when I stand in a space, I kind of have an idea of where I want it to go, right? After you speak to the client, and you'll try to explain some things to them, and it just will never happen. They're not going to see it, right? Mood boards do a good job. They don't do a great job for me personally. And so being able to show them exactly how the space is, it's just one less thing I just know going in, more than likely they're going to say yes, and we can just bypass this stage and move on to the next thing.
Okay. And are you finding, Nicole, the same thing? And I get it. I can totally picture a house isn't built yet. And if I have the ability as a potential consumer to not just like back in the day, you would just see like that flat lay floor plan, like,
Right.
living room, 15 by 20, kitchen, whatever. And so you're having Duke Renders render out that entire house in 3D. And so, yeah, now I'm looking at the Vincennes going, I have to have that house. Like I have to have that one. And I want that sofa and that thing. But
Yes.
take it to your design projects. Are you finding the same thing as Elle, that it's making, the systems and the operations internally better for you as well?
Absolutely. And Elle touched on it, but we have CAD, we have SketchUp, but those only take us so far. So when we render it with Duke Renders, it's really that 3D visualizing, getting into the nitty-gritty down to the smallest detail. So our clients really have no questions on what the final product's going to look like. So yes, it makes their lives much easier. It makes our lives much easier. And overall, it's just such an easy transition.
Okay. Now, Fernando, what does both of these ladies have described that the room is being rendered in explicit detail to the smallest detail, is what Nicole said. And Elle's talking about, like, you see every little thing, and it makes the client easier to say yes. You're not sitting there, Elle, I'm picturing, no, I mean this, I'm trying to explain that, and you're just like, here, this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? So, Fernando, what does the designer need to supply you or give to your team so that level of detail and clarity is captured?
So that's a great question, because that touches the first step of our process, and we want to emphasize that we have a very clear process. A lot of our clients do tell us that that's one of the things that they like about working with us. So that's the first stage of our process, the gather stage. There's a 3-stage process, like I mentioned. It's the gather stage, the clay draft, and the delivery. Your question, Luann, touches the point about the gather stage. It's basically what all designers already have. It's just a matter of sending it to us in an understandable way. We have the ability to connect to the different project management tools such as Mydoma, Ivy Pro, design files. So we try to make the life of the designer easier, because I know that putting all this together may be time consuming. Now, these are your floor plans, elevations, like all the items that you want to put in the space, regardless if they're custom items. That's an important thing, because we can model everything, and that's our promise, right? It's going to be exactly like designers want. So there's no tricky item for us to model, because we will definitely model from scratch. So the space will look exactly like the designer is intended. So going back to your question, Luann, all the basic needs, all the basic things that designers already have, it's just a matter of sending us on our way. If you have a DWG file, that's great. However, it's not necessary. We will find a good use for everything that designers send us, and to put it in place.
Okay. And Elle, what do you think about what he's talking about there?
Yeah, I want to add a little bit to what Fernando said, because when I first started using them, he's not pumping himself up enough. To be fair, they actually have a template, and I just looked at it, and it was them showing you what a designer would send. It was literally sent out, and you just follow it. And I thought that was very helpful, as opposed to just giving you the draft and telling you, okay, send this. It literally, it sent you an example and exactly how the folders are created, how you're supposed to drop them in there. And I thought that was super, super helpful, because at that time, I think it was our first time ever going into rendering. And I thought it would be a nightmare, but they really laid it out. It was quite easy. So I'm pumping him up a little bit more, because he's not giving himself enough praise, but their process is really easy, and their team is A1.
Love it.
Yeah.
And this is Nicole. I just want to add on what you said, Elle. I think, to be honest, I was intimidated to use them, because I felt like it was going to be just another thing that we had to do. But Fernando was so great. I think I had a call with him, and he was like, send us anything. Send us a sketch on a napkin. Like, we'll make it happen for you. And the other piece of this is you always have a dedicated project manager. So I was in constant contact with Angel, who is seriously an angel.
Yeah.
And I would send him anything I found, like, Angel, I'm really inspired by this piece. Look at the fluting on this island. Can you add that into the rendering? So while it might seem intimidating and something else that you have to do, it really doesn't have to be. So you could go through the steps of what they have you send to them, but you also just over email could, quickly write to them and say, hey, let's add this. And they made it very easy.
Yeah, and some of the things that I want to add to that too, Nicole, is that one of the biggest roadblocks from designers that we get is that, oh my God, do I have everything? Do I have everything to send it to them? Like, what we tell everyone on every single call is like, send us what you have. You are going to be in contact with an account manager. It's a human being, right? We will review it, and we'll tell you if it's enough. There's so many times that designers think, oh my God, is that enough? Yes. So what I recommend everyone listening is like, send us what you have, and we'll let you know if it's enough for us to continue. There's no need to create SketchUp models in order to send it to us. It needs to look pretty for your client, right? We're part of your team. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect for us. We'll resourceful, and we'll make it happen.
And the Elle here, guys. For those starting out, for those who may not think, okay, maybe this is, you're just getting into interior design and things like that. At that stage, that's where I was. And some of my scaling wasn't up to point, and Angel would literally message me and say, hey, Elle, by the way, could you retake the measurement of this? Otherwise, I don't think this piece will fit correctly. He, at one point, he's fixing my errors as a designer. And I can count at least 3 times where I had to change a furniture piece because Angel was rendering it and realized if these measurements of this space is accurate, this is not going to fit. So don't be intimidated and think you have to know SketchUp, you have to know CAD drawings. I'm not formally trained as a designer, and I am where I am. So, this isn't something that you should be intimidated by. Just, it's one of those things where, Duke's team really, really will, they will walk you through it.
I have to say, it's funny because I've been and loving listening to each of you share your different points about it. And you all literally answered the what about in my head when I said, is it, what do you have to send to, when I asked Fernando, what does a designer have to send? Because you've all instinctively touched on what I was imagining as the intimidation and the fear that I had. And I'm not a designer. I'm just thinking, if I don't have, 10 people on my team and I don't this, how it's almost like that thing where we know that hiring someone is going to make our business better. Like every hire in your company should make you more money because it frees you up to do a higher level thing. But there's always that moment where you're like, by the time I explain to that person what to do, I could do it myself and move on, which if that's because you don't have a system or process, that's the reason why. But it's a normal thing. And in my brain, I was like, by the time I gather all the stuff that I have to send them to make this thing that like I'm imagining the detail needed to make something as detailed as you were describing. And I was imagining it as being drudgery and trudgery. And how am I going to do this? But I loved, Elle, that you brought out that they have a template, because if there's a template, that means either me in the middle of my busy day, if I'm a solo, I don't have to think. I just have to check off. And did I do that? And did I send that? And I did that. Or if I do have an assistant or an intern or somebody, I can just follow the template, because that's that little part of actually making my business smoother. That's appreciated, right, guys?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So I love that. And I love that you, in the course of that, are describing other benefits of working with Duke, helping you catch the errors along the way. I mean, you're designing a lot of details, right?
I mean, imagine an L here. Imagine, you're doing 15 rooms in one house and you have 20 homes. I mean, you're going to miss one or two. And sometimes, and when he did that the first time, I was like, there's no way. And we remeasured the space. I said, okay, my contractor is going to go and he's going to measure. This way I can take the guilt off of me. He remeasured it. And I was like, oh my gosh. The space, the dresser is going to be the side table. As I remember this specifically, the side table was going to be 2 inches too big.
Whoa.
And so we had to find another one that would fit in the space so we can have both of them. And it just turned out amazing. I'm like, wow, I probably need to pay him a little extra, to be honest.
A little bonus, right?
Yes.
Well, again, I think it's just another tool in our toolbox, in our designer toolbox. I think I also was like a little bit hesitant because I thought that I should be able to do this myself, and then I'm like, oh, I should be able to do this. But at the end of the day, why? They're going to do it much faster than we could do it. I'm going to explain the value to my clients, and it's just going to make the entire process that much easier.
Mm-hmm. And a little clarification for me, Fernando, you mentioned that you connect with other platforms for like Mydoma Studio, for example. And what I'm hearing in there, I want to make sure I understand it properly, is if I have uploaded images to Mydoma for a particular project, what you're saying is those images, I don't have to take them, download them to my computer, and then send them over to you. Like there's a talking from that platform to your platform. Is that what you meant by that?
Yeah, so you have several options, right? Like you can that will save a lot of time, because yes, even though we do have a template to make easier to make things easier for designers, it can take some time, because especially if you have the all the information in one place, then you need to kind of like do it in another place, right? Now we don't. We can connect to Mydoma and design files and any other platform. Just share a user and we'll just go up in there, download everything, and just in a matter of seconds we have everything, and you don't have to do this all the way. Now we do have both options. There's designers that are starting and they probably don't have a project management tool. Well, you have the option of the template, and it will also make things easier.
Got it. Makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about how do you utilize it in your individual design firms, ladies? Like, is it a non-negotiable, every project is going to be rendered, or you have a policy on how the criteria that you use? So Elle, start us off how you approach that.
Yeah, happy to. So for ours, it's an option for certain spaces. But when we do our renovation spaces like bathrooms, kitchens, I do make it a requirement for clients to have rendering. So it will be a line item on their proposals or their invoice, however you want to phrase it. And I do that because I think for me personally, in those spaces that are so intricate, there's different, I'm a big fan of mixing textures and patterns, especially in our bathrooms. It's much harder to show you just on a mood board or things like that, and to see how these patterns are going to work together, right? You might see it and think, you're very intimidated by it, but getting it rendered lets you see exactly how we've changed the space, how it's going to function, how it looks now. And so for those bigger spaces, any type of renovation, we do require it. For bedrooms, living rooms, offices, it is an option. We do have those clients who love the idea of 3D rendering because, and Nicole can speak to this, our process takes a little bit of time, and it serves them as, it's like a little picture they can look back on when the project is taking a little longer. I have clients who say they send it to their friends, they send it to their family members, and then they're able to really visualize the space. I mean, Duke, their rendering is very photorealistic. I mean, sometimes it's crazy. You can't tell it apart. If you don't have that eye, it will be really hard for you to see whether it's a real room or a fake room. So for us, it just depends on the size and scale of the project and what space that we're rendering.
Okay, I love it. And how about you, Nicole? How do you approach, every project, some projects? What's your criteria?
Yeah, in our firm, I mean, I think it comes down to just knowing who your client is. So sometimes if I know that the client really needs that piece, I will just roll it into our design fees. And we do phases. So I might put it into phase 1 and just add in renderings into that phase. And some clients, it just might be a separate line item. Like, if you need this, if you want this, here's what it looks like. And then it's just a line item that they could add to their package. I do want to say I agree with Elle, because I think when you have the rendering, it gets them so excited about what's to come. And like Elle said, it holds them over because these projects are taking 1 year, 2 years, and it's always something that they could hold on to and get excited about.
Yeah, I was thinking about that when you were saying that also, Elle. I mean, we've had enough conversations on the podcast to know that there's that point in the project where clients aren't so happy, right? It's like the kitchen is torn apart, all of the things, and that's the phase of the project that they're writing tons of checks. That's also the phase of the project that typically there's not a lot of high touch in person to person from you to them, and they're sitting over there, and that's when we've talked about how powerful it is as part of your process to have built in at that point touch points that, send dinner over to the family. Make sure you do have a meeting that you don't actually need, that it's just, hey, I'm your designer. You still love me. It's going to be great. Don't forget, right? But I think that visualizing that they've got this to, remind me of, it just reminded me of, it's like when you're pregnant and like you're about 7 months and you're just like, you have got to be kidding me. This is entirely uncomfortable. I am completely over it. And then you're looking at the little sonogram and you're like, yeah, that's so cute. That's what's going to happen.
No, and you're exactly right. And even for us, we go a little further. On our page, we will put, we've done it before with Fernando, and he didn't know this was happening, but we would put our rendering, and then we would put the actual picture so that people can see just how to scale and how accurate it is. And because of that, if you follow us on our Instagram, which a lot of our clients do, they know that what they are seeing is actually what they're going to get. And it really does put them at ease. Yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Nicole,
And
what did you
something
want to
else that
say?
we like to do in that lull we were talking about is, so we've shown them maybe one rendering, like here's your full kitchen. And if we're going months with no progress, I'm going to reach out to Duke Renders and say, hey, can we get another angle from you, right? Can we get maybe another little space to give to our clients and then build that excitement again?
Okay, I love it. I love it. Okay, so and Nicole, okay, so two things. So Elle, when you have a bath or a kitchen reno, it's a non-negotiable, and you are charging for the rendering, but you're just like you're not getting a kitchen without a sink, you're not getting a kitchen without a rendering. So there's a line item, but you stand firm on it. Other areas, and Nicole, you're saying what I heard in what you were saying, and I want to make sure I heard it correctly is you're sort of approaching it, and we all have that feeling where we're reading the client, and that client is going to be a good client and terrific and all the things, but maybe we're getting that sense that whether this client needs more specificity, that we need to be locked down a little bit more, but working with like the engineer personality that like loosey goosey is not going to be fine. So you're building in the fee for the rendering in that proposal. And then other projects where you think it would be nice and maybe they would enjoy having it, you're giving it to them as an option to have. Is that what I understood for both of you, how you're working it?
Exactly.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Okay. So there's not one way is the only way to think about having renders as part of your project is the point. Okay. Now, how about let's talk about what does it cost? Because everybody's like, I'll do it. Let's do it. Right. But we're not talking about $25 for a rendering here. No. So we're not talking about $25 as our fee from Duke. We're not talking about $25 as a fee to the client. So who wants to talk about pricing and getting us on solid ground with what to expect?
Okay, so each project is different. So I kind of like want to make that clear that we rather talk to the client and understanding their needs, because not every single project requires a lot of images. Not every single project requires just one image, right? So we rather talk to the client first, understand. I take a lot of time. I mean, I talked to both Nicole and Elle. I mean, initially, like to understand them, because I know it's a big commitment. Like I know that this is the beginning of a relationship, like we have with both of them, and we understand and we take it very seriously. Like the foundation is so important. So I take a lot of time and I ask a lot of questions to understand each of the clients, so we can provide a solution that fits each client's needs individually. However, to give some range, some of our renderings may start like from around $700, and we have like packages. If you get multiple images, if you get multiple spaces, we do suggest, because we've been doing this for a while and we understand a lot of our clients and if there's a pattern. However, each client is different. So we don't want to kind of like get into specific pricing, because then it's like, oh, you told on the podcast this amount. So, but again, it's a suite of products that we offer to make designers' life easier and their presentation smoother. Okay, so I don't know if that's a good enough answer, diplomatic answer, but yeah, it depends.
Well, no, I love it. I mean, look, it's, anything custom, right? We're all in a custom industry. So if somebody asks a designer, how much do you charge to design a space or a house? You'd also have to say, it depends, right? But at least we've got a range. We're not sitting here like, well, okay, is it, $1 or $5,000? So I love that. And the other thing too is, I don't know if anyone listening heard the about $700 range and went, oh my goodness, that's expensive, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking to myself, like, in the case of Elle, you're probably specifying a $300,000 kitchen. So I don't know, 700 to make sure you love it. Or Nicole, you're probably selling, $1 million home. So I don't know, 700 to make sure you love it. Like it just doesn't, you should not focus, in my opinion, on a number like that stopping you in your tracks. I just had a conversation with a designer yesterday, not having anything to do with the podcast. And she was expressing to me that when do you know when it's okay to invest in your business? like I've got some money in the checkbook, but it's not, jammed pack with dollar bills here. And I'm only at the beginning of my journey. And when do I know it's okay? And I was like, it's always okay. But here's the other side of it. It's never going to feel easy. Right. So go ahead, Elle.
Yeah, I was going to say, so it's one of those things where for me, I guess it's very justifiable because again, I have a mission of getting an approval done. And maybe Nicole can add to this as well, because there are times when you can do revision over revision. Oh, I don't like this, and I can't see this, and I would rather just avoid that. I always aim to hit the nail on the head the first time, even 90%. If we're making changes, it's little tiny changes. And I pull out the big guns. That's how I see it. I see it as the big guns. And I know we're like out here praising Fernando, and it's truly because I've worked with them for years. This isn't, anything that doesn't benefit me much, but it's really true. I pull out the big guns because I want them. And for me, rendering does it every single time. If it was up to me, I would probably get all our spaces rendered. Right. But again, it's about budget. So even for us, where we have bigger budgets, you're not needing to render every space, right? But the ones that you really want to get that, yes, oh my gosh, I've had a client who said, I don't need to see anything else. I've actually had that. We did a rendering of, and we showed the living room first, and Fernando and his team did it, and he stood up and started like jumping around. This was a client that I thought would be first. He said he didn't want to get involved in the design. That's what husbands always say, right? But then he became
famous last words.
Famous.
Right?
He became the one that was like super involved, and the moment he saw that rendering, he was like, I'm sold. I already know, and we had 9 other spaces to present to him. But he was like, I already know if this is what the living room looks like, I'm assuming you've based the rest of the spaces on that. I was like, well, you're going to see this because we took 5 months to put it together for you. But you go and you pull out
Sit
your
back
best.
down, sir.
Yeah, you're hitting treasures, and they're like a secret weapon for me. Honestly, I'm not saying this to make Fernando super happy, but it's true. It's something I've always said to him, and Nicole can also add to this. It's not every space that you need to spend this money on, but when you do need to move the project forward, when you do need to make an impact, it's the way to go for me.
I love it. I love it. And the thing is, think about that confidence, right? So you don't need anybody's rendering to know that you're confidently going to create a beautiful home, all 9 rooms. But that new client in your process, right? By the time they hire you for the second or third house, great, okay? But for them to see one room and his reaction to be, hey, go ahead, that is that not the core essence, what every designer is searching for? Trust me. Trust that I will put the home together and it will be beautiful. Stop overthinking the things that are in my domain, right?
Exactly. It does come down to trust, and with the renderings, and like I said, it makes it crystal clear for them. This is what you're getting. So
Yeah.
they see the value from the beginning of the project, and they're not waiting months and months to see it come to life.
That's right. Right. Like it's like you from day one, you walk into the space, you can mentally visualize it. But this is literally transferring from day one, that mental vision from you to them way before all the hard work has been done. I love that. I love that.
And I just want to add to it. For me, it's like getting double for your money, because that project that you're presenting, you're not going to see it for a year, 2 years. I don't know how, it depends on the scale of the project. That's a post I can put on our social media. And then when the real thing happens, we're able to like, remember, I've done it before, about one of our bathrooms took like 8 months to finish. And I was like, remember this rendering that we talked about? Well, it's done. And then it was like, here you go. And so you're not, you get these images and you can use them in terms of you're getting double. I mean, the client is paying for it, but it's beneficial to you as a designer.
I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. So Nicole, let's talk a little bit about how you're using it for your spec homes, right? Because I know that there's designers in the audience that are also heavily involved in the spec home process and as part of one of their revenue streams. So talk a little bit about that for you.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it earlier how back in the day, it would be like just a black and white floor plan, and they would list out, okay, the home is 4,000 square feet and this many bedrooms. And we just wanted to make it so like almost like, I mean, you couldn't say no to this house. So we have all the materials picked, all the colors, the kitchen, everything is already dialed. So on our current spec home that we just sold, we have a huge banner on the front of our fence, and it's 3 renderings of what the property is going to look like. So we have the front view, the back view, and then we have the kitchen view. And it said coming soon for, we put it up in March when we started, and we just sold it last month. It's almost done, but they saw the vision, and I don't believe it would have ever sold without that because
Not until it was further along for them to kind of walk through the shell of the house and everything, right?
Exactly. And it takes a lot of pressure off of us because it's stressful to hold on to that house, and then we could start our next one.
Exactly. That, as developers, that's the thing. It's like, okay, that one's in the bag, contract's done.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next. I love it.
Exactly.
The thing that went through my mind is when you said that you rendered out the house with all of the things. So you're actually taking the time to design it as if you were designing for a client. Like that seems like a lot of work too. I mean, I get the payoff from it, but
yes,
right?
These I call them spec homes, but they're custom homes, and they're like my dream homes. So luckily I work with a great builder, and we didn't build it for a client. We built it basically like how I would want to build my house, right?
Yeah.
And in our contract, it says there are no design changes. So that's really key to our projects. So the client that's purchasing the home is they're fans of I for Pretty, or they like what we picked, and there are no design changes.
Oh, that's an interesting clarification because I would have thought that it was here's a rendering of what the house could look like, but if you buy it, we'll still customize it to what you want. It's like, no. This is actually because you want to keep going through the build process.
Correct.
And the only way you can do that is if you were following the plan that you designed from the beginning.
Yes. I designed the whole house, and no changes are made, so it just makes everything super smooth and seamless. So we're really proud of it.
Interesting. So what's funny is that also now answers my other question. I was thinking, oh, you have to take all the time to design a house that you're never actually going to build that way, but you are going to build it that way. So you have to take that time anyway. Okay. Yes. Makes sense. Okay. So the thing is, I guess the question is there any sort of like, what is, Fernando, the turnaround time? Like I imagine some designers like Elle and Nicole are probably have multiple renderings in-house at the same time, but is there, I feel like the last time you were on the podcast, you told me that you had over 100 employees at that point. So I don't know if you have more, doesn't matter, but there's a workforce there, and I can bombard you and you're still going to pump this work out. Is that correct? It's not like we're going to make you busy now and somebody listening to be like, great, I'm going to get a rendering in 100 years from now. Thanks for making them so busy.
Yeah, no. So we do have a team. So that's one of the things that kind of like, we try to build a company, right? Like a lot of render artists, very talented people. There are render artists, and they are in contact with the client. So what we did was to create a team, and like you said, it's growing and growing and growing, and we can take multiple projects at the same time. We don't have like we cannot take 100 projects at the same time. Well, we probably could, like we probably could. Nobody does 100 spaces in one shot, right? So usually the process is like 1, 2, 3, sometimes like 4 at the same time, but we can take several projects at the same time because there's a team behind it. Again, it's not just one person. In fact, we do it kind of like a conveyor, a factory,
Oh, yes,
like,
like
like a
Conveyor
a
belt.
conveyor
yeah,
belt. Yeah, my
yeah,
English, right?
yeah, yeah.
So I initially, like, one team does the entire architecture structure, then another team is focusing on just like products, another team is focusing on lighting, another team is focusing on texture. So there's, like, if something breaks in the process, it's easily fixable. If this happens a lot too with other companies, like if the artist gets sick, well, the project is delayed. Oh,
That's right.
100%. With us, we tried, because it happened to us. It happened to us at the very beginning of the company, right? So now we are more like a process. It is we have processes internally that can manage any type of these situations. Now, you ask about timings. Usually, this, even though it's a complex process that our clients have no idea, it usually takes us. I mean, you can start seeing your rendering after 3 days. You see the second stage of our process, which is, I mentioned, the gather is what the designer's homework, and then the second stage is the clay draft. So as fast as 3 business days, you're going to be able to see something. So it's kind of like a quick win. It boosts your ego, it boosts your client's ego.
You're keeping
So
them happy, like they're trying to keep the client
yeah,
happy.
it's a little bit of a happy pill, like, hey, have this, show it to your client. Like, this is how the process is going. We have a lot of communication. So the entire process for one space, that are normal times, is around 7 to 10 business days. We do say that if clients need them very fast, just let us know. We don't rather, because nothing rushed comes out in the best way possible, but we can manage rush projects and faster projects if the client needs them. But coming back to your question again, in 3 to 5 days, you get your clay drafts, and the entire overall process is 7 to 10 business days from when we approve all the information until we deliver. Yeah.
I love it. I love it because it's true. I mean, look, it's the elephant in the room. There are lots of individual renderers all available to us from all over parts of the country. I know many designers that use virtual renderers and so forth from various parts of the world. And it is, there's lots to be said for that. But when you are high performing interior design firms like these two ladies are, and you're doing multiple projects at one time, you might need 5 renderings on 5 different projects for 3 different rooms each project, all in the same 10 days. Right? You want to keep it moving, right?
And I think it goes back to the customer service component. And, Fernando talked a little bit about our account manager, but we all have a dedicated account manager that we're in constant contact with. So that it makes a huge difference in terms of, who we're talking to, how quickly they get back to us. I think their customer service is definitely top notch.
I love that.
And poor Angel. I mean, we keep bringing up his name, but he has to deal with both Nicole and I. We're lovely, but I'm sure we bombard him with a lot of stuff. Me personally, I have gone to this poor guy and said, "Hey, so I need this in like this amount of time," and he'll tell me realistically what he can do, and because obviously they want to deliver quality, and he comes through every single time, and I think I've done it more than twice. Sorry, Fernando. But they really will work with you, and it's really a quick process. Sometimes I think they're going faster than I might be still deciding on one more factor while they get started, and I'm finding myself like, oh, like
I
they're
got to
waiting
get it
on me.
together.
Yeah.
Yes,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's look, we all understand. We've all been on the receiving end of the requests for rushes. And I think if we all really understand, we don't just ask because it's Tuesday and why not ask for a rush? Like we ask for it when we need it. And when we're working with a solid, reputable vendor that we do have that relationship with. And that's what's so fun about the dedicated account manager, because that is the difference of making a big company like Duke feel like a small service-based company, that individual. And so, I mean, listen, we had the episode on the podcast where Fernando actually talked about his philosophy and his team and how they built their business. And he has built it on great business principles, and their illustrated when he says to you, we don't have one person doing from A to Z. We've got it broken up as an assembly line. This way, if any one person on the assembly line isn't available, we're not just stopped, right? And now also assigning an account manager that takes that company from super big, super productive, super able to handle volume, but to deliver it in a very personal way. And I love that. And then one other thing I just like to touch on before I let you guys go, and of course, Fernando, I'll ask you if there's anything that you would that we haven't talked about before we leave, but you think about that while I ask these ladies this question. It occurred to me that using Duke renders, have you ever had the experience where you found yourself stretching your own creativity? We've talked about how it's difficult for the consumer to often visualize what you've got in your mind. But what about when you are thinking, I think this would be amazing, but I've never gone out on a limb and designed like, a fireplace this way or whatever this way. And it occurs to me that there's something there in that. And has that ever been your experience? Either Nicole, you?
Absolutely. One of our current projects we're working on, I had this idea and vision in my head of this really pretty curved, fluted hood that's going over a range. And I wanted to add this tiny marble detail to it. And I can envision it in my own mind, but I have no idea how that's going to come to life, right? So I called in Duke Renders and they rendered it, and turns out I love it. It came out just how I was envisioning it. So of course, it's also very beneficial for us as the designer.
Right? You stretch yourself a little.
Yeah.
Elle, have you had that situation for yourself as well?
Yeah, and we're actually going to be, launching our furniture line. And Duke and I, Fernando and I have talked about this because when we start designing our own pieces, it's all in here, and it's going to be, my job to be able to communicate, with the team and say, no, I want it a little bit, because it doesn't exist. So now I have to convince myself, like, what I'm seeing, does it actually make sense? Does this fabric looks good when it's turned this way? Does it fold better? Does it, and I've done it in a project too, where something I was trying to do, I hadn't seen an example of it before. Right? We pulled inspiration from other designers. I love Nicole's work. You go to Pinterest, you go on Instagram and you find, we all build on each other's creativity. It's just what it is. But there are times where our brain is wired that way as creators, and you want to do something, and I, for the life of me, cannot find it, which is great, right? Because it means you're going to be the first person to invent this wheel. And this is a perfect way to see it, because as much as I will try to put it together on a 2D, whatever it is, it still doesn't match up to what does it actually look like in real time in 3D. Will it look good? And so I think that's another added value.
Yeah, I you know what? It's funny because at the level that each of you are at, it's interesting because you both took it to this highly creative, where you're creating something from your brain that has not been done before, and the value of being able to translate it to Duke and then to be able to produce it. But I'm also seeing it at like 5 stages back in your level of creativity and accomplishment as a designer. How about, like, does this bed go with this rug, go with that lamp, go with that table, right? Yes. Like, just, it's funny because I remember when we did my bathroom here in the townhouse, when we downsized to this townhouse, Kim, who is my designer at Window Works, and she's a degreed interior designer. She just chooses window treatments as her profession, right? But she went to the place with me to pick the tile for the floor and the bath wall and all the things. And I'm a person where if I hire an expert, I'm like, have at it, expert. And so we went, and my contractor is also highly creative, and he's his master in fine arts, and he just happens to use it as carpentry and so forth. But I know that I trust him visually. And the thing is, we were just using neutral colors because this is a townhouse. I'm going to turn this baby over at some point. So I was not going for all exotic stuff. And I was like, give me neutral. And, Kim's like, well, we have to have different textures and different tiles. We're not just putting, I'm like, we just have to do whatever you say as long as it's neutral. Well, they put together this combination of neutral tiles. And I remember saying, I watched the two of them do it and they both saw it and they were like, oh, that's it. And I'm like, that tile doesn't go with that tile. Like it doesn't. And I just looked at her. I'm like, you're kidding me, right? And she's like, no, why? And because they both agreed on it, I'm like, okay, I'm done. And of course it's perfect, right? So my point is, if I'm a newer designer and I'm just getting my chops and I'm just taking the beginning of that process of converting my ideas, whether they are, entry level, using all existing stuff, or creating from my own brain the way you seasoned designers are, either way, that value of, yes, I invested the $700 to know that the $5,000 design fee I'm giving for the $40,000 bathroom, even at that level of project, it's comfort for the designer to know that they've produced something that's going to look good, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
We don't have to tell our consumer, I had this made just as much for me as you.
No.
I'm sure now that I did a good job, and here it is.
Here it is. Yeah. No, it's great.
Oh, I love it. I love it. It's so good. So, Fernando, wrap us up. Any final thoughts or any other thing that you wanted to say about Duque Renders and what you want designers to know about your company?
Absolutely, yeah, and thank you all for your time. I think it's been great. I do want to say that we can cater to seasoned designers like Elle and Nicole here that has been working with us for a while now. However, new designers also can take advantage of this type of services. Like, we work with a lot of new designers that don't have a portfolio yet, that to get new clients. So what we do for them is create their digital portfolios in order for them to go out and get the clients, because with the renderings, the designer is it's their own client. So it's like Nicole in the spec house, right? Like there's no changes. That's Nicole's dream house, right? So what these new designers are doing is that creating these spaces in 3D in order to go out and see, well, this is my capability. I can do this. Like, they are designs. That it doesn't mean that just because they're not built doesn't mean that they're not designs, right?
You still design them.
So we can help, designers from the very beginning, getting out of design school, to, experienced designers like Elle and Nicole here that have been using us for their own reasons, right? We also want to say that, I remember I learned this from my wife. My wife is a designer too. And she said, like, I present to my clients, a Venn diagram with 3 circles. You have the quality, you have the time, speed, and you have the cost. All right. You only can choose 3. You only can choose 2. I'm sorry. You can only choose 2. Like the 3 of them, good quality, fast, and cheap, it just doesn't exist. All right. So if you want to have something done fast, which we do, and you also want to have something that is great quality, not only in the quality of the images, but also in the quality of the service, well, that's why, you can expect the price not to be a $5. Nothing wrong with them. It's just that you're not going to get those 2 things. Okay. You're going to get them cheap. Okay. And you're probably going to get them, not that big of a quality, and maybe they're not even that fast. So I do want to say that we, as this, like designers, we are a luxury service, right? Like somebody that just purchased a house and want to go and furnish themselves to IKEA or something like that. I mean, they'll furnish the house. Now, if you want somebody with the expertise and the level of knowledge like a designer does, then that's a luxury service, and there's so many types of designers. There's the super high end designers. The designers that are just starting, right? Like, it's kind of like the example. Would you rather go and do surgery with the doctor's 100th operation, or you want to do it with the first one? Right? So that the guy who's done it many times is probably going to charge you more and probably going to finish faster. All right. The newbie is going to probably make some mistakes, and when the stakes are that high, I mean, I let everyone here listening, if you want to make those mistakes, right? So it's kind of like where you are in your design business, but we can cater to everyone. And we do have, and we do want to meet, if you are interested in working with us, we do want to give us a call. You can book a time with me. I will take my entire time, my sweet time, to know you, to ask you the right questions, to understand if we are going to be a good fit for you, and if we're going to be able to help you. I have a link that's easy to remember. It's dukerenders.com/Luan. dukerenders.com/Luan. It will get you a calendar. You can choose a date, and then we'll talk about your first project.
I love it. I love it. You, listen, I know Fernando many years, and I just have come to love you and respect you very much as a friend and as a business person and a colleague. And Nicole, of course, you've been on the podcast before, so we've met. Elle, this is our first time getting to know each other. And what I've learned is that I now need to interview you separately. So that's it. I thank you so much, all of you, for being here with us. And I appreciate you so much. Have a great day.
Bye, guys.
You too. Thanks, Luann.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Luann.
Luann. Thank you. Bye.
Well, there you go. There's actual evidence that we already knew was out there about how valuable Duke Renders is and what they can bring to your projects. Clearly, Elle and Nicole are two interior designers who vouch for how easy and how beneficial using Duke Renders for renderings has been for them and their firm. And the thing is, it's interesting is, maybe you're the same, but neither one of them was so 100% sure at first, right? Elle said that she was a little nervous first time contracting for a rendering, and Nicole said that she was a little intimidated by the process. But I love that each explored it and pushed themselves to think out of the box, to imagine, to allow themselves to imagine and think, what would happen if I had renders of this quality? How could it impact my business? They found that not only has integrating 3D renderings into their projects benefited them as designers, but they have found that it has benefited their clients as well. I love that. I also love that both of them agree that Duke Renders makes the experience easy and that everyone they work with is top-notch. All of the people that interact with them on their accounts, they had nothing but good praise for. And that's what we want when we go out and we hire a company to do something for us. We want to make sure that the customer experience that we like to deliver is the same customer experience that we get when we're the consumer, right? Another benefit, Nicole mentioned that with her being in the spec home market, she said the ability for her clients to be able to see the vision of the home, the way she has it in her mind, before it even hits the market, before the construction is completed, has been absolutely instrumental in her selling those homes, okay? She points out, and I think we can all agree, that SketchUps and mood boards can only take you so far. But with a 3D visualization down to the smallest detail, there's no question it's easier to get to yes. Right? I am also sure that you can relate to Elle, pointing out how much you already have on your plate in just the course of doing your job well, right? Think about how much time you've spent trying to explain your vision to a client, and they still can't picture what you're talking about. And then how many times, once you've delivered something, you've been hit with, well, that's not what I thought it would look like. I mean, I custom window treatments for 40 years. I've heard the line a time or two, right? These are hours that as an interior designer, you never get back, both in these endless conversations, but also in the revisions, both the conceptual revisions and how about when, there's actual work revisions, because when they say it doesn't look like I imagine, you actually have to redo the thing. This is cost in time and money. Time and money that you don't get back, but that you avoid when you deliver a quality Duke Renders beforehand, right? We also talked about how almost every single project, there's that point when the clients aren't so happy. They're losing patience with the process. They've lost track of why they wanted to do it all in the first place, and they're feeling like there's no end in sight. We have compassion for that. You can imagine. Many of you have also been through a build from the ground up or a renovation. It gets tough. But the power of a quality Duke rendering is that it's tangible. It's that visual reminder of why they called you and the transformation that is at the end of the tunnel. It helps keep them connected with the exciting part of why they hired you in the first place. Okay. Now, in addition to helping clients visualize a space, rendering has helped Nicole and Elle visualize the potential of their own imagination. These photorealistic renderings can help you take larger design risks. Elle said as much as she can try putting something in 2D, it still doesn't match up with what's actually conjuring in her mind, right? Now, in terms of cost, Fernando explained that every project is different. It's personalized, just like anything custom. But for the most part, a starting price of about $700 is what you can expect. If this takes you a minute to process, if you just want, okay, keep thinking and now start to focus on that value. Like I always say to you, in every episode it practically comes up, you pay in either time or money. So you can either provide the client multiple mood boards and SketchUps with multiple revisions and burn your own hours up, or you can go in with what Elle describes as her secret weapon to move things forward and nail your vision the first time out, right? There's value in the investment because you've delivered a high-quality rendering that automatically makes you look more polished and more professional. Like putting on the right outfit for the presentation, or setting up your office with candles, music, and refreshments for that same presentation meeting, right? You do things to create an experience for your client. You do things to convey your reliability. You do things to convey that you are delivering a luxury experience. Well, delivering a high-quality Duque renders is one more tool in that toolbox. Now, if you've heard the other episodes of Duque renders, you know they have a very clear process and that they listen to their clients. Fernando seemed to be just a little modest here, okay, because Elle and Nicole were very happy to elaborate on how easy it is to get started with Duque renders in their process. In Duque Renders Gather stage, you can send whatever you have. And if you have a question and you're not sure if you have enough to send, Fernando says, don't worry. They will walk through what you need. Okay. And bonus, if you're a Mydoma Studio user as well, you can add Duque Renders as a user in a particular project, and they will be able to access any images you've uploaded. I mean, love that, right? So one other caveat to this whole thing that these smart people mentioned to us is that even if you have yet to land your first client, Duque Renders can create a digital portfolio for you to be able to attract those clients. And I want to tell you, you know that you must invest in your business to build your business. And investing in renderings might be a route for you to get the ideas in your head, the things that you know you're capable of doing and of creating in front of potential clients. Okay? Not a bad thought. Now, if what you learned today resonated with you and has got you thinking, got you curious, go to duquerenders.com/Luann to book a call with Fernando. He's happy to answer any questions and help you figure out what next steps you might take. All right? Thank you so much, Elle and Nicole and Fernando. It's always a pleasure to have you on, Fernando. I appreciate you so much in our friendship. And Nicole, thank you for coming back. And Elle, I am looking forward to picking your brain apart and learning more about your business as well. And thank you for showing up today and listening. I do appreciate you. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or Luann University, go to luannnigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to windowworksnj.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.